So before I start this video, I need to turn the light on. I wonder why it was so dark. I want to say thank you to Alicia for the sweatshirt. My son and I are a Mario family. We used to play when he was growing up. We used to play Mario games on the Nintendo Wii, and then when he got into the army, he bought a Nintendo Switch, and then he brought it home. And that's what we do. Anytime he'd come home on leave, he'd bring it with him. Or now, since he's back in state, he just left it here for when he comes over. That's what we play, is Mario games. And I have a room in my house that was probably an office at one point. It has floor to ceiling shelves across one whole wall. And on the top of that, we have Mario plushes, probably a couple dozen of them at least. So we're definitely a Mario family. And Alicia sent me this sweater, and I've nicknamed my cat Princess Peach. So I want to say thank you. It's very comfortable. And she got it in army green because my son's in the army. So very, very kind. I just wanted to say thank you. And I told her the next live stream I did after I got it, I would wear it. So I love it. It was so fun. I LOL'd, smiled hard and LOL'd when I opened it. I was not expecting it. So very cool. So I'll say thank you. Incidentally, this was one of the things that actually the last comment that I received on any video was from her, and it was related to the microphone that I bought, the new microphone. And the last video that I did, it was kind of in and out a little bit because it kept moving on me. I had to tighten it. And I'm like, whatever. I hate tech. I just hate it. I like it minimally, but I'm a minimalist when it comes to tech. I just, keep it simple, right? But it got me thinking about, kind of where this world has gone and the globalization aspect. Hi, Richard and Marty. Nice to see you. The globalization aspect and the tech, the AI, kind of where that's going and how rapidly it has advanced. Hi, Wayne. Nice to see you. And one of the reasons, well, kind of where this thought leads is there are many people, I would say dispensationalists heavily, but many people who have taught, well, I guess they would have to be dispensationalists, pre-tribbers specifically, in large part have taught that the rapture is imminent, meaning that it can happen at any time and or there's nothing that has to happen first. One of the things I have never taught on my channel, especially as I started studying the literal end times timeline, I have never taught the doctrine of imminence. I have never believed that the rapture can happen at any time when I started doing my own study. Perhaps that was something that I said at one point because that's just what I grew up thinking, just going to a regular old Bible church, and they were pre-trib, premillennial, dispensationalist. So it was kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, well, that's just what they said, so I'll believe them. Talking about a whole host of things. You grow up, everyone and their mothers heard no man knows the day or the hour. And part and parcel with that is, hi Kelly, nice to see you. Part and parcel with that is the rapture can happen at any time. And I think those two thoughts kind of go hand in hand, because you can't believe the rapture can happen at any time if you are unaware that there is a predetermined time for the 70th week. So those two things kind of go hand in hand. As if you believe the rapture, if you believe that no man knows the day or the hour, and I think where people go with that is that there isn't a definitive time for the 70th week. And so hand in hand with that would be the rapture can happen at any time. That is a lack of knowledge position, not an abundance of knowledge position. And I think at some point people have just kind of thrown their hands up and said, okay, well, whatever. It'll happen whenever it happens. And that's okay. That's actually a better position to take than no man knows the day or the hour, because that's just scripture taken out of context. That's just scripture taken out of context. People who say it'll happen when it happens, that's more of a faithful position than no man knows the day or the hour. That just means that they're not interested in trying to seek the information. They've just resigned to it is what it is and it'll be when it'll be. Okay, great. But the more that we study the end times, the more that we learn about what the Bible says and all of the data points that it gives and how it aligns and everything. You really can't, unless you are just really, really just wanting it to happen as soon as possible, which I get. But there comes a point where you can't continue thinking it's imminent, meaning that it could happen at any time, or not even that there's nothing that has to happen first, but that it could happen at any time. There comes a point where you have to diverge from that when you realize that the 70th week is set in stone. It has specific dates and appointed times. It's not going to move. It's not going to speed. It's not going to slow. It is what it is. And when you understand that the rapture is legitimately simply only, but importantly, the keeping of the promise that says we're not going to be here for it. So there's a few understandings. I wouldn't say understandings. There's a few things that I have learned and that I teach that make the doctrine of imminence impossible. You can't, like, these things are mutually exclusive. You can't do both. If you believe that the 70th week has a fixed immobile time for it and that is knowable, and you understand that the rapture is going to happen to keep the promise intact that we won't be here for it, but that God is long suffering and that keeping the word of his patience implies those appointed times, pointing to those appointed times, then you really probably wouldn't conclude that there is a gap, and you wouldn't conclude that it can happen at just any time. So these are things that the more we study, the more we learn. Not to downgrade anyone's wishes, but it does become wishful thinking to a certain point that there's going to be this major amount of gap in between, that the rapture can still happen at any time, and that there's this fixed target, this fixed time for the 70th week. So in kind of even as stupid as the little microphone that I have, there are things in this world that we can look at in retrospect, because when people have the idea that no man knows the day or the hour and it can just happen at any time, everyone will look for reasons to believe it is then, that it is now. And that's probably been why people have thought it is now for the last 40, 50 years. Because they look at the world they live in, and there are any number of ways to try to match that up with scripture. And yet we look at where we are now, and we hopefully can unreservedly conclude that there's no way that the rapture could have happened 40 years ago or 30 years ago or 20 years ago. The Bible simply didn't, the world simply did not match where the Bible said it was going to need to be. There wasn't a global world. We look at the world now and people say, oh, well, causing people to all receive something in mass at one time wouldn't be a stretch. Could that have been accomplished 20 years ago? No, it couldn't have. Could it have been accomplished 40 or 50 years ago? No, it couldn't have. So I think what the doctrine of imminence has done, or kind of where it came from, is this: no man knows the day or the hour. It can happen at any time. There's nothing that has to happen first. And maybe that's actually where it got off course, was thinking that there's nothing that has to happen first. And so we make the logical leap that it could happen at any time. So I will say it is absolutely possible that there's nothing that needs to happen first, because I don't know. Maybe you guys know. I don't know specifically how that's going to play with Gog and Magog. But in stating that there's nothing that has to happen first, it is not a true statement, and it has never been a true statement that it can just happen at any time. And I think that that's one of the evidences that we see in this world now, is while people have thought that it could have happened a period of decades ago, we look at what the Bible says and how things were going to need to stack up. Even geopolitically, it wasn't there at that time. It is there now. It's more readily able to move where it needs to go in order to happen quickly. The world was not where it needed to be a period of decades ago. And we see, like I said, with tech and with AI and things like that, geopolitically. And then you look at even the say, age of Israel, and you look at the numbers of years in between specific events, which are more biblically aligned with prophecy, and we understand more about the time period that we're in. And hopefully we have concluded that while people may have been watching for a very long time and may have been under the impression that it could have happened at any time once upon a time, hopefully we have come far enough to see that that is not that's not really a truthful statement. It could not have happened then because things were not where they needed to be in order to facilitate. And this goes back to a video that I did about prophecy is based on God's foreknowledge. There are two different ways we can look at this depending on what the prophecy states. Gog and Magog is a perfect example of both of these, where God looks down the timeline of world history and says, this is the way that the world is going to be at this time based on the free will choices that men have made. And I'm going to use that to my advantage to overtly intervene. Gog and Magog is literally the perfect example of this. So God looks down the timeline of world history and he says, in the latter days, there's going to exist this situation in Israel among the people. And there's going to be this other thing that I'm going to bring about that is going to be made possible because the situation in Israel is what it is because of free will choices. Contrary to that, you look at, or I guess differently than that, you look at Revelation, and that's just God overtly intervening. Like the world isn't necessarily at a specific place to do a specific thing. He's just throwing judgments at people based on however he has determined those are supposed to be dispersed, first half, second half, whatever. He's told us exactly what those are. But you can look at prophecy one of two ways and say it's only directly intervention by God, like what Revelation is, or God looks down the timeline of world history and sees the world at a specific point, and he uses that to his, I guess, advantage, which is what Gog and Magog is. It's both of those. And so you look at the world, and we can absolutely see the geopolitical alignment not far off. It's not there yet, but it's not far off. So that's one of the things where we can look at it and we can say, God doesn't bring that about. They're already ready to go. And then there's just like a person who comes on the world stage and they all gather and go. But that's not like oh gosh, it takes the world by surprise. Nobody ever saw Turkey and Iran aligning and Libya and Sudan and all these other places. I mean, yeah, they do see those things right now. It's very obvious, very evident that all you need is a singular person to gather them and go. And that's where God intervenes and says, at this time, I'm going to bring this about. But he uses the situation in the world in which to do that. And so this is kind of one of the interesting things about the lead up to is it's kind of like the grace of God is allowing people to see these things. And if anyone is paying any attention at all, it ain't hard to see. Like it's just not hard to see. But this is a big part of the reason why I have never taught the doctrine of imminence here, because I don't believe it's actually biblical. While I do think there could be a case made, and it's still speculation to say there's nothing that has to happen, it is just fallacy to say that it could have happened at any time, because the conditions that need to exist in the world in order for specific prophecies to be fulfilled, and you go to day counts, year counts, month counts, respective to like Psalm 90 and respective to the whole Jubilee thing and respective to Israel's, 80 years in the land. One of the videos that I did was talking about the 70, 70, and 80 and how that all aligns. And when we understand more about this, we can assuredly state that there's no way that it could have happened a period of time ago. The period of time is now or in the near future. And no, it could not have just happened whenever. And again, I think it's a lack of knowledge position or a lack of wanting to try to figure it out. I think people are okay with not caring necessarily. Like when it happens, it happens, which is fine. That's a neutral position. Like you have faith in God, you trust him that when it is time, it's going to happen. That is a neutral, faithful position. It is a negative position to say no man knows the day or the hour. That is an absolutely negative. No man knows. That's a negative. No is a negative word. So when you say that, you're assuming a negative position, which really is kind of absent of faith, because what does that mean that you think about God, that he would want you to be like surprised by his intentions toward you? I really do believe that's just an underevaluation of God's character for people to believe that, because the Bible doesn't say that either. But that's just my own personal feelings about that. But yeah, the doctrine of imminence is not, I think where that came from and how that grew over time was just people not understanding certain things or not knowing certain things. And so they said, well, maybe because I don't know, or no one knows right now, that no one can ever know. But that's just a misunderstanding. It's just a misunderstanding. So it was just kind of like something that I read into a comment talking, or, thinking about technology and a stupid little microphone that I have that I don't even know how to use, because I'm just not a tech person at all. And kind of, little rabbit trails, as I'm bound to do, is think about technology and where it's come and what it will allow for in the modern era, that a lack of it would never have allowed for previously. And because it didn't exist, there's absolutely no way that these things could have happened once upon a time, regardless of who said it or who believed it. They simply could not have. It wasn't time. There was much that had to move on the timeline of world history. There was much that had to be done to bring people to a time where these things could be fulfilled. And again, this isn't a God overtly intervening 100% of the time. This is mankind was going to move the world into a specific space that allowed for these things to occur. And then God was going to bring it about to use what existed to, facilitate everything. But there's just no way. And I hope that if we pause for reflection, like I said, I know a lot of people have been watching for a very long time, but I think if we pause for reflection, we, in hindsight, realize that it couldn't have happened at any time. It never was going to just happen at any time, whenever. That there's always been these predetermined things, and it's been our job to figure out what that is. Hi, Cheryl. Hi, Leo. Exactly, Cheryl. The rapture is also an appointed time. Nothing we can do to change it. Correct. God. Yeah. Yes, it is. Absolutely, it is. God's timing is perfect. Yep. Hi, Daniel. You are very welcome. I hope you feel better about things now. Hi, Angela. Happy Friday. Hi, Ken. Hi, Dan. Hi, David. Hi, Foxy Fair. You said you were wound, and what you're saying is blowing me away. I'll tell you later why. Okay, you're laughing. Okay. Modern day Samaritan woman. First time here. Well, hello and welcome. Nice to have you here. Ken, you said I watched the round table last night, the one where you went on the previous week. At the end, I was exhausted. They're all over the map. There's something. But God bless them. Hi, Lavira. Lavira, I'm glad that you are here. Welcome. I don't think I've seen you in chat before, but you sent me emails. I did respond to your first one. Based on what you said in the second one, it sounds like you did not see that, but that's because you sent it from Hotmail. For some reason, anytime someone emails me from Hotmail, they do not get my responses. So I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for taking the time to email me. I did not want you to think that I ignored you, because I did not. But I think it was because, and there was somebody else that emailed me from Hotmail, and I did not get, I got it from academia, but when I responded, neither one of you got mine. So just as a general rule, if anyone emails me from Hotmail, I will respond, but you won't get it. So if you have a different email server, there's something with Hotmail. We had the same issue with work. When we would send it from like our customer service email box to respond to customer emails and inquiries. Nobody from there's something with the server. Hotmail just doesn't mesh where it needs to mesh all the time. So I apologize, but I did respond and I did get them, but I'm glad that your question was answered. So yay, happy. Ken said you kept turning it off and going back to kind of like a train wreck. I think I kind of zoned out for a little bit of it because I understood what they were saying, but they also weren't letting me speak. I was trying to make a point and they totally jumped on it. And then I was trying to clarify because they were like trying to debate something I wasn't debating, but there was like a point where they weren't letting me speak. So I think I just kind of zoned out for a little bit and I was like, okay, well, we're just going to have to agree to disagree. So it's all good. I don't begrudge anyone their own free will choices, not even a little. But I'm certainly not going to ask you guys to go over there and support me in something that I really don't have any business. It's not my gig, The whole world has been deceived. Everything mankind has created, he got the idea from God's creation. Well, there's nothing new under the sun. Ecclesiastes says that. So yes, that's not deception. That's just correct. Hi, Last Days Christians. Why would God create a calendar and then not use it? Well, that was one of the other things they wanted to debate about going back to a 360-day calendar. And I was glad that Joel kept repeating the question. He's like, why did God use 3 different ways to count? Because he wants you to know to use a 360-day calendar. And then they got into talking about 701 BC and Hezekiah and the crustal shift and there was something that happened that moved them from 360 to 365. And I'm like, dude, that was before Daniel's 70 weeks prophecy was even given, the whole of which would have been after whatever crustal shift happened. It was using 360-day calendar back then. It's going to use it in the future. I don't think there needs to be a crustal shift for God to say, count this way. But I'm like, okay, we're beyond help here. Laura Lee, well, it's nice to meet you. Laverna, you said I was a teenager in the late 70s when I became a believer. I remember the old ladies in the church excitedly looking for Jesus. They lived to see Israel become a nation. They thought that was the last. Well, that's actually one of the things I had in mind is, things couldn't have progressed until Israel became a nation, because that's part of Ezekiel's prophecy is in the last days when they're gathered out of the nations and they're in their land, dwelling safely. That couldn't have occurred until at least 1948. And then they were going to be there in a period of time. There's been multiple wars since then, 67, 73. There were just things that had to happen first. And I do understand the thought exists. People haven't known what the specific timing is. And I think that's part of it too, is that dispensationalists have a tendency to be rapture focused. And maybe people simply weren't looking for the 70th week, the timing of the 70th week. Maybe that's what it is. It's not malicious, and it's not that they were, I think maybe that's what it was, is that dispensationalists, pre-tribbers, who are the ones who say, no man knows the day or the hour, and the rapture can happen at any time. If you're only looking for the rapture and you're not looking beyond that to anything else, then yes, of course, you're going to miss it. You will quickly come to the conclusion that the rapture, the timing of the rapture is not stated. The rapture is the removal of God's people prior to judgment. So then you would have to know when that judgment is going to start. And if you're not looking for that, then of course you're going to miss it. Not you guys, but just anyone specifically. If you're not looking for the right thing, of course you're not going to find it. That's just, I think that's just how that's going to go. Yes, the 3 guys, yeah. Oh, you did find it. Okay, Laverna, good. Or Lavira. Good, good. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah. Sometimes it goes to spam, and that's cool. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that I responded to you, that I didn't ignore you. Hi, Elizabeth. Well, I had never listened to the show before, and I don't think I need to. I didn't even watch the whole thing. That I usually go back and rewatch my videos to make sure that if I totally wildly misstated something, because brain and mouth on different pages sometimes, and I just want to make sure that if I did misspeak something, it wasn't major. But I gave up a little bit of time through that. I didn't even rewatch it. All right. Well, other people's children. It is a cool sweater. Alicia sent this to me. Is so nice of her. So nice of her. Hi, Lucifer. Hi, Amter Products. Yes, troll alert. Yes. Ken K, you said, I believe your timeline is spot on. What is strange is all these so-called Bible teachers don't teach your timeline, and when I ask a question on a live stream, their eyes glaze over. I was just not meant to be popular, and that's okay, because I don't even care, and I don't even want to be. Being popular just invites a lot of the wrong crowd, and I would rather have a small right crowd. I appreciate all of you. I'm glad all of you are here, and all of you are just perfect the way that you are. I do not need or want anything beyond what the Lord wishes me to have. So I thought that it was cool that I got invited. Frankly, I have no idea why he invited me. I'm glad that he did, because it drew a lot of people who wouldn't have heard about me to here. And I think some of you guys have found some of my content is interesting, which is great. But honestly, couldn't tell you what it was about my content that was interesting to them, because we are incompatible. Lucifer says, Alicia, send me a cool sweater. And then he did a little kissy face. That's so funny. Lavira, you said it's exciting to have more information and see the world's stage setting for the tribulation. Yeah, I have been impatient for Jesus to come for us. It's so important to keep sharing the gospel as we wait. Absolutely. Absolutely. How are my classes going? Gosh, I am going to, I wanted to jump on here. I have one. So I turned something in last week, and she gave me a 0 on it because she said she couldn't open it. It was a PowerPoint presentation where I had to do like all this major work for it, do voiceover audio for each of the slides. She said she couldn't access it. So I resent it to her twice today. I have another assignment I'm going to finish tonight, one due on Sunday, and then my final assignment is next week. So this was a 12-week class. They're usually 8 weeks. I'm just mentally done. I've been done for weeks. It's like a struggle to get through my assignments because I'm just like, but I have only a couple more, 2 pretty short assignments, and then 1 long-ish. Even my final assignment's not that bad, but I'm just like, I'm ready to be done. Ready to be done. Need a break. Want to do things that I think are interesting, and that just ain't it. Enoch, what part of the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as should not worship the beast should be killed? Do the post-trib peeps not get? My son. If my son was here, he would tell you precisely what he thinks of that, because he and I are of the same opinion that anyone who believes that they could live through the 70th week is full of absolute crap. Like, just based on the judgments that are going to come and the amount of people that we're told are going to die, it is the height of foolishness for anyone to think they would stand a chance. But I think that they just believe that they're going to be part of the remnant, because that's what people believe, right? Is they have to put themselves in the good group, regardless of whether they're dispensationalists or not. Everyone is predisposed to believing they're faultless and flawless, and they're going to be in the good group. So they'd be part of the remnant. I think that's what they believe, is that all of the post-tribbers think that they're going to be part of the remnant. Does anybody know what a remnant is and who the remnant is specifically of? It's of Israel. A remnant is a very small part. And it's a remnant of the people who aren't dead by that point, which we have no idea how many that would even be. It is literally the height of arrogance and foolishness to think that anyone would be alive. But that's what people do, is they have a predisposition to being like, this is why you have a lot of people say, well, we're the Church of Philadelphia because the rapture promise is there and they didn't get a rebuke. Why wouldn't you put yourself in a different church? Why them? Because you're perfect. You don't need a rebuke, right? This is like, these people do the same thing in a different way, but they're doing the same thing. And it's honestly just because we're all perfect, right? We're all perfect, no flaws. So we've got to be in the best group, the one that gets saved. They're doing the same dang thing, man. I don't know Enoch, but my son has some words about that. He has some thoughts about that. And I think it's funny to listen to him. And this is the reason why he's telling people, talking about the lateness of the hour and stuff like that. And he's like, Mom, I've heard you talking about this for years. And he's like, you were right on. I mean, as much as he knows, like he said, he's tried to listen to some of my videos and he just like, it's way up here. And I said, that's cool. Just show a try. I'll just tell you what you want to know. Just ask me whatever you want to ask me. But he's been talking to people at work and friends and stuff, because he's like, what's coming, you got no shot at. You got no shot at. And he's like telling them all the things that are going to happen. But he said he's been listening to me talk about this for years, and he finally sees it happening. And he's like, yep. So I'm glad he listened. Hi, Alicia. It's so funny. I pray there are no computers in heaven too. Yep. I don't want them. Hi, Krista. Ooh, -15. Ooh, it's snowing here. I thought the snow was going to melt, and just as I thought it was going to melt, we just got dumped on again. I'm over this. I am over this. And I can't even escape because you guys in Florida are getting it too. And I'm like, I can't even go anywhere to get away from this because it's snowing in dang Florida. This does not thrill me. This does not make me happy. Like I have all this extra time and I could go somewhere and I can't because there's no place to go to get away from it. Blah. Oh. Is that how you get to be without spot or wrinkle? You go through the tribulation. So that's how you get to be without spot or wrinkle. So like all the Old Testament saints have no shot. They're just going to be resurrected and thrown into hell because they didn't go through the tribulation. What about all the people who have died already? Are they just going to be resurrected to hell too and not life because they didn't go through the tribulation? Like this is such a short-sighted. And I don't even understand because these are smart people, but it's like too smart for your own good type thing. Nobody is getting resurrected to go through the tribulation. So if that, or the 70th week. So if that's what you think it's going to take for you to be without spot or wrinkle, then you are literally consigning every single person who ever lived, except those who die in the 70th week or get saved out of the 70th week, to death. Like that is literally what you would be doing if you believe that. If you believe that Jesus isn't the way that you get without spot or wrinkle, and you have to go through the tribulation. That's how, like, what? This is so wrong. I just do not even understand. But I think this is what you have to believe in order to. Hi, David. In your timeline, the year 1406 BC is actually a key point. It is the key point. It is the key point. How solid the year is. By the way, greetings from Czechia, Central Europe. Well, hello and welcome. How solid that year is. Okay, so that's why I say if 1406, then 2025, because that is the year upon which everything is based. And so that was the timeline that I created, was to arrive at that date, to do exactly what you're saying is how solid is it? So I used about a dozen different data points to construct a timeline, several of which were isolating other Jubilee years on that timeline, because you can start the timeline from wherever and use whatever count and arrive at whatever place. But the goal is to construct the timeline and then to be able to plot other events in Jubilees on there. That's where Ezekiel's vision came in, is that was a data point plotted on there. It occurred in a Jubilee year. That is literally the crux of that, the whole point of that, the whole importance of Ezekiel's vision is not necessarily that it's Nisan 10, but what year did it occur in? What type of year did it occur in? Because that's important for two reasons. Is first, you're adding a data point on the Jubilee timeline so that you understand that your Jubilee timeline is correct. If it wasn't correct, it wouldn't plot right. Since it plots right, that gives you validation that the timeline is correct. But then also it helps you understand what it's leading to, because it's a prophecy of a day, month, and year respective to future. So that's that's the whole point of that, was to understand whether 1406 was correct in meaningful ways. And that's what I tried to do. But because I wasn't there, that's why I say if 1406. I do believe it was correct based on what I found. But again, I wasn't there. So until such a time as it happens, like I will never like be 100% sure, because I wasn't there to independently verify it. But that's why I have lots of data points and lots of reference material. And there are other surrounding prophecies also that help us validate that. Like, God doesn't just give you one way of figuring it out. There are many double checks. There are probably 4 double checks that I've built into it. But again, it's all like, am I reading into it, or is that what it really means, kind of thing. So the double checks are cool, but they're not primary. But thank you for asking that. I do appreciate it. Thanks, Alicia. I have a pretty cool son. I'm biased, but he's pretty cool. Hi, Adam. Welcome. You said, is there a connection between one's view on biblical inerrancy, infallibility, and when one believes the Exodus happened? I've been trying to look into the early versus late Exodus dates debate. Well, I wouldn't immediately connect those two. What I would ask is, when you're talking about early date versus late date, I'm assuming it's the 1400s date versus either 1200s or 1300s. To my understanding, the 1200s or 1300s is a selection of the wrong pharaoh based on a misinterpretation of a city name instead of a misinterpretation of a city name being a pharaoh name. That's Ramses. Ramses Succoth was a city, not the pharaoh. I think that's where people try to date that wrongly, is using that as the pharaoh of the Exodus versus just the city name. But I'm not sure. It's got nothing to do with inerrancy or infallibility. It has to do with people misinterpreting it. That's one of the things that, like, we being egotistical humans, we think that if someone has a different perspective, then they're wrong because we're right? It could just be that someone misinterpreted it. That's going to be what it is. It's not a question of inerrancy or infallibility of the Bible, because then that's saying, well, I'm right, the Bible is wrong. It's not ever going to be a true statement. Not ever going to be a true statement. So whoever is misstating that has simply misunderstood something. It has nothing to do with the inerrancy or infallibility of the Bible. We don't attack the Bible when it doesn't tell us what we want or what we think. We would just need to reevaluate what we think. And a lot of people have a problem doing that. "60 degrees in northern Arizona." That still seems a little chilly for there, but maybe not. Oh, Feast of Trumpets, yeah. There is legitimately no value in arguing against Feast of Trumpeters any longer. I gave that up a long time ago. There's no value in that whatsoever. You could show them 100 proofs and they still wouldn't give it up. David, you said you finally converted your friend from Lordship Salvation to free grace. Saved. Awesome. Congratulations. Ken, you said, yeah, whoever the God a Minute dude is, he actually commented on one of my videos, but he's still a Feast of Trumpeter. Like, he might agree on the 2025 thing, but he wouldn't agree on the time of year. I don't think, based on what I saw. And I only just very briefly reviewed his, like, the titles of his video names when I saw him. But I think he's a Feast of Trumpeter still. Like, we can get people to this year, but that's really no big thing because the people who are now on 2025 and 30 or 2032 are the people who have legitimately said 2024 is the year and 2023 is the year and 2022 is the year. So it's no big thing that people are now saying 2025 because of course they're going to gravitate toward anyone who shares that opinion. That's what they do every single year. What you have to do is pay attention to who's talking about spring versus fall. And that's people who are truly going to believe what they're talking about or just picking this year because it's this year. And that's like the clickbaity thing is everybody wants it to be now. So we're going to back it into being this year every year. So it's not the 2025 thing. It's people still gravitating toward fall. You're still going to be about 6 months too late. But I mean, it's the nature of the beast. I mean, it's always this year for everyone, and then next year it'll be the year, and then the year after that it's going to be the year. Like, yeah, you know. I give it about zero amount of credit. Like, I appreciate that people validate my timeline, but dude, I've been saying this for like the last almost decade. So for me, this isn't new. If people want to now agree with me because I'm telling them what they want to hear, that's fine. But like, in one ear, not the other. I do not care. Like, that doesn't make me feel any better. I don't, yeah. It would have made me feel better if they'd been paying attention, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, but they weren't because they were paying attention to whatever that year was. So, like, I appreciate it, but it doesn't, same story, different day, Angela, he said, I'm not going to file my taxes until April 9th. That's funny. I know, I got my W-2s and stuff, and I'm like, I just don't even want to do it. And I'm trying to figure out if I just don't have the interest in doing it, but that I need to, or I just don't have the interest because I don't need to. Right now, like, I feel like the weather and that I don't have any place to go to get out of the house every day and stuff. I kind of in a funk, but I don't know if that's like the weather or because I legitimately am just like see things as pointless. I'm trying to figure out my motivations here. Cutie Pie, is there somewhere I can look to learn about all the things that start on Nissan 10? All you have to do is type in your YouTube search, Heather R. Nissan 10. And it's going to bring up a whole bunch of content. That's what I would suggest. If you have a specific topic in view, just type in Heather R and whatever that topic is. I've probably talked about it many times. because people say, do you have a video? No, I probably have 10 or 12, depending on what the topic is. So, because I've been talking about this for a really long time. So I would just use my channel name search, and then whatever your topic is, and it'll bring up whatever. And then you can choose long, short, whatever. Because like I said, I've been talking about this for a long time. This is not new content on this channel. So if it's not in my most important end times playlist, then just use channel name and topic search, and then whatever it brings up. You are welcome, Lavira. Hi, Faith. Oh, hi, Roxanne. Thank you. Yep. Enarq said he's a Feast of Weeks or early June guy. Got it. Okay. Yeah, I'm probably going to be the only Nissan tenor. Yep. Hi, Cheryl. If I didn't say hi. Have you seen the movie? No, I have not. I don't watch movies or TV. I don't even know what. I like to read. If I'm going to like waste my time doing something, I like reading. My TV sits off 98% of the time. I might turn it on to like watch a movie, but yeah. Well, I will too. I think that's kind of the blessing and the curse of talking about it now is that I started talking about this a period of time ago and nobody wanted to hear it because it wasn't what they wanted it to be. Now it is what people want it to be. And so there's a whole bunch of bandwagon people of a sort. But then you also run the risk of, because you say it's this year, to people who might not be aware. And so they're going to label you as people have been saying that forever and it still's never happened. So, I mean, it's like you can't win for losing kind of thing. But it'll be fine. Like, it's fine. Angela, you said my wonderful color-coded, the Jubilees overlaid by the pattern in the mountain Exodus is a good 1406 resource that Heather created to share with us. Yeah. That's honestly like one of the most fascinating double checks. And that's why I look at it like there's, like I said, about 4 different ways of double checking it. And with 1 or 2, it might be interesting, but then you look at it and you're like, but if everything is saying the same thing, then it's probably not wrong. But again, I wasn't there. And so it's a total leap of faith. Like, this is a total leap of faith. And that's why I get irritated when people say, well, do you have a plan B, or what's the latest date it can happen? Because then it feels like you're asking me to diminish my faith, and I don't want to do that, because this is like the whole thing from the start to now has like been a work of faith, to not second guess it and to not like have a backup plan and all this stuff. It's like, no, this is what the Bible says, and assuming I have understood it correctly and gotten the data points correct and all that stuff, like it's just going to be what it's going to be. But it's been a work of faith through the whole thing. And so the tendency would be when we're getting close, it's like, well, maybe it's wrong. Maybe it could be this. It's like, no, I'm just going to stick with what I did until such a time as I would need to reevaluate. And then I would do that. But I don't think that'll be a need. But yeah, there's a lot of double checks, because if it's right, it's right, and God's going to confirm it in multiple different ways. And I think that's the fun part of it, is when you understand what you're looking for, you kind of see it all over after that. If you don't know what you're looking for, then it'd be easy to miss. But when you do know what you're looking for, and you know what you're looking at, and then it just, it becomes easier after that. Yep. God doesn't have a plan B either. So it'll all work out. But yeah, I just, going back to the topic of this, I think it's interesting in just little comments, that kind of make you think about other things, and the whole doctrine of imminence. We are at the first time in world history where things could be the way that they need to be in order to move things along. And this is a confluence of both God looking down the historical timeline and saying, at this point, this is going to be the situation in the world, and I'm going to use that to overtly intervene, to bring about change. So it's two ways of this. Is God's foreknowledge. Prophecy is foreknowledge. So God understands what the world's going to be, where man's choices will have brought him, and he's going to use that to his advantage, and then also overtly intervene. And he's going to tell you exactly what that intervention is going to look like when he does it. And so I think that's kind of where we're at. And for that reason, you kind of look at geopolitical things and you say, okay, well, the world was going to be at a certain point, Gog and Magog specifically. The world's going to be at a certain point geopolitically. And the only way that it's going to be there is if a certain person gets elected and a certain foreign policy exists, which is going to facilitate that somehow. Maybe we don't know all of the details and how that's going to all work out, but beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's going to align in specific ways. And so how is that going to be best be facilitated to bring about a specific condition? So it's just interesting. Yes, the whole 2,000 years thing. Yeah. Krista, you said if Apophis. I think I need to make that a blocked word too. Okay, here's the thing, guys. Apophis. I have been asked about this. I hope I never see this word again. Not anything against you, but I've been asked about this repeatedly, and I shut this down 100% of the time. Apophis, people are linking to one of the trumpet judgments. If 2025 is the commencement of the 70th week, 2028 would be the midpoint, which would put Apophis outside of any possibility, because the trumpet judgments would occur between Nisan of 2025 and Tishri of 2028. If Apophis is in April of 2029, there is no vial judgment that aligns with that. So this is one of those things where understand that it's fun to talk about. It's interesting to some people. They're talking about it. But if you actually look at the timeline and you actually look at what judgments they would be trying to tie that to, that's early in the 70th week. 2029 is late in the 70th week. It's in the second half, and that would correlate to vial judgments. They're trying to link it to trumpet judgments. So this is why these are things where it's like, okay, we have a very structured timeline here, and where they're putting that and what they're saying it could correlate to is absolutely not possible. So no. And that's where I was like, I appreciate that people are interested in things, but again, we go back to the extra biblical stuff and why it's never a good idea to try to use the natural to interpret the supernatural. The meeting between Trump and Netanyahu. Yeah, Netanyahu is definitely not popular among his people right now. That's for sure. Grace through faith. Hello. When did you realize the date would be April 8th, 2025? Well, that's just what the calendars say. There's two calendars that I looked at to cross-reference, and they both say that Nissan 10 is April 8th. So it's less about April 8th and more about Nissan 10. It's Nissan 10 2025 has been long time. I do notice the little hearts on the screen when you guys, yes. I do. I see them in the background. I see a lot of them right now. That's funny. Oh, that's funny. Hi, Tara. You guys are funny. And the smiles and was that oh my goodness. And little celebrations. And yeah, I see all the little emojis. That's funny. uh, No, that's fine. Have fun. Enjoy yourself. That's what it's all about. Okay, well, I have to go do some homework that I don't actually want to do. But Alicia, your comment about my microphone got me thinking about technology and end times and how that all kind of fits in, and imminence, and how as much as people have wanted things to happen all along for many, many years and decades and, however long, the world was simply never at a place like it couldn't have happened back when. As much as people have been saying that all along, it couldn't have. So it's just interesting to consider. But you all have a great rest of your day. I have to go finish writing a paper, and then I'm going to be working on my Revelation 20 study some more. If you guys didn't check out part 1, I would encourage you to do that. There's some very interesting information in there, specifically about Ezekiel's end times vision. That's one of the other things. Is if you guys listen to that round table, we were talking about Ezekiel's temple. If you caught it, Doug puts that as the temple in eternity. He puts it after the millennium. And I go through that and talk about how it is related to both the 70th week and the second coming, because there are two extraordinarily important things in that end times vision. Even if you put the temple in the wrong place, you have to back off that and put it in the right place eventually, if you read the vision. Because Ezekiel 43 contains the anointing of the most holy, which is the sixth and final purpose for the 70 weeks. Temple is going to have to be, it is shown to be standing when he enters through the eastern gate and anoints it with his physical presence. What does that tell you? Deductive reasoning here, folks. Already standing in order to accomplish the sixth and final purpose for the 70 weeks. And then also in the very last chapter, Ezekiel 48, it talks about the parceling of the lots to the tribes. That correlates to Daniel 12. I wrote about both of these, and one is going to be expanded upon, the anointing of the most holy, but I introed it. But I did talk about Daniel 12, where it says at the end of those 1,335 days from the midpoint, those extra 75 days, Daniel's told to go his way and rest till the end be. He's going to stand in his lot at the end of those days. The lots are parceled to the tribes in Ezekiel 48. So that is kingdom. It ends up in kingdom. It starts 70th week, ends up in kingdom. So that's one of the other things, is there are prophecies in there that tell you specifically when Ezekiel's temple is related to. Because the Bible, if it's not written in the plain text, will exclude all of the wrong things until you can only conclude the right answer. You just have to keep reading. So anyway, I'm going to go. You guys all have a great rest of your day. And if you haven't checked out the first part of Revelation 20 study, I would encourage you to do that. It's interesting. More to come. Stay tuned. See you guys later. Alicia, once again, thank you very much for my sweatshirt. I love it. Take care, everybody.